Walt Disney Company is in a terrible place with back-to-back colossal disappointments. First, it was Tiana's Bayou Adventure being called a necessary downgrade. Then out came The Acolyte, a hack of a product, which is the final nail in the Star Wars coffin. Disney needs a turnaround, and they need it quick. Folks, will they strike out with 3, or will Inside Out 2 be the movie they need at this very moment? Hello folks, welcome back to the Pro Channel, where we endeavor to explain entertainment, keep you ahead of the culture curve, call balls and strikes, keep it right down the middle, and bring back Hollywood to the sensible center. We're happy to have you. As we get into this topic today, consider clicking the like button. We start out today with IndieWire. This is by David Elrich, folks, and we're going to be talking about how there are mixed reviews for Inside Out 2. But folks, don't fret, for I will yet be giving my review. I'll be seeing the movie at 3 p.m. Eastern today, and then sitting down live for a review at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time with all of you. And then, by the way, we're going to launch Vacation Radio, our very first original content effort. It's going to be a huge evening, folks. Check it out. All right, here's what we've got. Inside Out 2 review, all brains and no heart. This disappointing sequel proves Pixar learned all the wrong lessons from its pandemic years. Now, there's an interesting thing happening here, folks, and I don't want to presume that I know what David's politics are, but I can tell you that it is seeming to me, in a trend thus far, that those who want Pixar, and I'm not presuming this of David, but those who want Pixar to go into politics headfirst, to go into wokeism headfirst, they're not liking this movie. And frankly, that's a good sign, but it's not a sufficient sign for Disney. We're going to talk about that. I'll explain in a moment. Pixar's obsession with universal relatability results in another movie that feels more like a corporate spreadsheet than a glimpse into a real person's brain. Now, think about that, folks. This is, again, a statement against aiming for the sensible center. Now, if it is a paint by numbers, we understand that would not be good. But aiming for the broadest possible demographic with a children's movie, yes, you should do that every time if you would like to have money. And that's the whole reason for it. You get the idea. The pandemic couldn't have come at a worse time for Pixar, the fading animation powerhouse. Fading animation powerhouse. Folks, isn't it amazing how the media has now taken on our talking points and adopted them as if they are their own? It emerged from a decade of creative misfires and middling sequels just to have two of their most personal films in forever, Luca and Turning Red. Oh, yes. Turning Red would have done so well in theaters. Oh, it would have done well in theaters. That's why they yanked it. Dumped onto Disney Plus, further diluting the brand by retraining audiences to think of Pixar as just another content provider. Lightyear was supposed to be the silver bullet that got the studio back on track as the cartoon kings of the summer box office. How genderous of you to call them kings instead of queens. But the ill-conceived Toy Story spinoff only confirmed that Luxo Jr. had lost his luster. Nice alliteration. I give kudos where it's due. Meanwhile, last year's equally unsatisfying Elemental stumbled out of the gate in a way that took the shine off its slow burn commercial success. Hey, we've reached the point now where they're calling Elemental unsatisfying, and they're just coming out and saying it was not also a winner. This goes on to talk about how Inside Out 2 does not do what this author wants. Folks, you can go read it. We've got the link down in the description below. For the purposes of this video, we need to keep moving. So go check out and see what David has to say. Allison, however, over at Vulture, says that Inside Out 2 is another product of the Pixar slump. But folks, don't dump this video. Not yet. We've got positive reviews coming out. I want to show you what they're saying. And then I'll show you what I think is going to happen with the box office here. There's a big story here, but you got to stick around to hear it. A question kept shoving itself to the forefront of my mind, Allison saying this, throughout the duration of Inside Out 2, Pixar's sequel to its 2015 hit. Are all the personified emotions that scurry around inside the head of the movie's young heroine? YouTube, that is the female version of Hero. Please do not strike us down. Supposed to be an allegory for her developing consciousness, or is Riley actually being controlled by whatever adorable cartoon has seized the console at the moment, like she's a mecha in the shape of a 13-year-old girl? I think that's a great question. I wondered that too, because it seems to me that the ethos, the modus operandi that's put forth by the original Inside Out is the suggestion that we are utterly controlled by our emotions. And that's wrong. I mean, it's just flat out wrong. You should not be controlled by your emotions. You will have a heck of a hard life if you are controlled by your emotions. You've got it. Logic has its place there. Emotions are important. They're the bells that go off, but logic really matters. Watching the first Inside Out, a lovely, though occasionally antic coming-of-age movie about Riley's struggles to adjust to a move from Minnesota to San Francisco, I would have said the former without question, but the sequel, don't know. In building on its initial premise to portray the mind as a brightly colored wonderland full of imaginative renderings of someone's inner workings, Inside Out 2 starts to get a little weird. There's the real world, and Riley's having a stressful time in it. Then there's the interior one, which feels more and more like it's intruding on Riley's story rather than enhancing it. New characters and elements get added, the metaphor becomes overextended, and the idea that this world is meant to be a reflection of one's person's psyche gets lost in a sea. Now, why do I show you the negative reviews first, folks? Well, I want to end on positive. But the ultimate takeaway here is that it's not going to be smooth sailing. This is not going to be a universally praised film. Now, I may praise it. I don't know. And some of my friends are praising it. So we'll have to wait and see what I think. But Brian Truitt out of USA Today says, Inside Out 2 review, the battle between joy and anxiety feels very real in a profound sequel. Now, I want to say, that's a positive headline in a not so positive way. Like it doesn't say here, it's great, it's tremendous. It says it feels very real in a profound sequel. Okay. For teens, those who aren't yet teens, and anyone who once was a teen, the Pixar sequel Inside Out 2 hits like an amusing, profounding wrecking ball. This one's getting a 3.5 stars out of 4 from USA Today, so that's good. And it just goes through the motions in terms of the review, so we'll leave it there. But here's another one that I think is positive, but again, not so positive. This is out of the New York Post by Joni Oleksinski. And it says, Inside Out 2 review, Pixar sequel is nice, but not as good as the original. Again, not bursting with that kind of flavor that Disney needs to win greatly with Inside Out 2. 9 years ago, the movie Inside Out pulled Pixar out of a creative rut. The groundbreaking Disney-owned animation studio was delivering dud after dud, such as Cars 2, Brave, and Monsters University. Now listen. Pixar might have been in a little bit of a rut. Cars 2 was their first lackluster film. Brave's not terrible. It's not terrible. And Monsters University is derivative. But listen, that's a mini rut. That's nothing compared to the glut of terrible we've been receiving from Pixar lately. And then Inside Out with a voice cast by Amy Poehler, which returned to the inventive glory days of Toy Story and Ratatouille. Almost a decade later, Pixar's crisis is now existential. Yes, it is. Its fortunes at the box office have plummeted. Yes, we're saying that out loud now. We're allowed to say that in the mainstream media, apparently. The movies often stink. And by the way, folks, I shouldn't be so harsh. New York Post, I don't know if they're considered the mainstream anymore. They got tossed aside 4 years ago. It's been forced to lay off staffers. It has. And is quickly losing its once dictatorial grip on American childhoods. Yeah, that's the cost of trading out meritocracy for whatever this is we have now. This is the cost of going from Lassiter to Doctor. This is the cost of putting Jennifer Lee in charge of overseeing so many of these films, whether they are Pixar or Disney Animation. So it's praying the sequel Inside Out 2 saves it yet again. Well, I don't know that they're praying, but they're meditating maybe. How does the second flick match up to the original? Appropriate for a film about cute talking emotions that live in our heads. My feelings are a little complicated. So again, folks, we've got a semi-positive and yet ultimately not overly praiseworthy film, according to a critic. So let's take a look at the financial aspect of this. This is really the big story of the video, folks. You want to see this? Here we go. This is by Rebecca Rubin out of Variety. Box office. Inside Out 2 aims to reverse Pixar's woes with $85 million debut. Now, the narrative is being set up that if it earns $85 million for a debut, that's a win. I'm here to tell you it's not. It's not even close to a win, and I'll explain why in just a moment. And you'll see it, and you'll know it. And if you disagree, you can drop a comment, but I don't see how you'll do so. It says Inside Out 2 should evoke an emotion that Pixar hasn't felt at the box office in years. Joy. The follow-up film to 2015 cerebral hit Inside Out is estimated to score a stellar $80 million to $90 million in its box office debut. If projections hold, it'll overtake Dune 2 as the biggest opening of the year. Unfortunately, again, folks, movie theaters are dying. The whole industry is collapsing. This is the Kmart and Sears moment. We may lose half of our theaters next year because of the failure of Hollywood. So the fact that this is number one thus far and not breaking 100 million, that's the canary in the coal mine. That's not something to get excited about. As this weekend's only new national release, it'll have no trouble taking the box office crown from the prior champion, Bad Boys Ride or Die. the fourth installment in Sony's buddy-up comedy starring Will Slappy Slap Smith and Martin Lawrence. Okay. Inside Out 2 also looks to snap Pixar's recent cold streak following last summer's Elemental, which only started off with 29.6. It was the worst. And by the way, that's the Lightyear effect day. That's the Turning Red effect day. That's the Strange World effect day. It doesn't matter if it comes from Pixar, Disney Animation at this point. It all looks the same. People just know Disney. They see the Disney logo. They know that's a no-go with their families now until they find out what's in it. So I want to show you this, folks. This is the list of the weekends and how much the original Inside Out made. So we've got a projection of $85 million for Inside Out 2. How does that compare? Well, folks, all the way back in 2015, when movie ticket prices were about half of what they are today, Inside Out, the original film, made $90 million in the domestic box office on its first weekend with 3,946 theaters. It didn't have 4,000 theaters at that time. By the way, they increased the theaters the next weekend because box office theater owners were like, whoa, look at this thing. But 90 million is what it made. And again, ticket prices 10 years ago, about half of what they are today. With Dune, well, not with Dune, with Furiosa. With Furiosa, it was reported that the average ticket price was $15. $15 for the average ticket to go see Furiosa. Back in 2015, the average ticket price was easily under 10, probably somewhere around 8. So maybe not quite half, but it's really close. And despite historic inflation, movie tickets have actually outpaced inflation. And that's because theater owners are trying to make up for the fact that we've seen a 60 to 62% decrease in total movie attendance. You heard that right. That is catastrophically bad for the industry. So is Pixar getting a win with Inside Out 2? Well, that all depends on how you look at it. If being the number one movie in a horrible, terrible, awful year is sufficient to be celebrated, have at it. But if your sequel 10 years later, and with movie ticket prices, that is, being about double, if it can't beat the original, that means it's about a 50% decline in audience. You heard it again, folks. The projection right now is something like Inside Out 2 landing with half the audience of the original. That's not a win. That's not a win for Disney. That doesn't drive interest in their IP. That doesn't drive people to the parks to go see the little Inside Out characters. That doesn't drive people to go watch it on Disney Plus. Half the audience being gone is a horrible thing. But being number one, that's a decent thing. Now, here's what really I think we need to concentrate on and think about, folks, as we get ready for this one to come out. And that is that Disney needs a string of successes. We are in Andor territory right now. What I mean by that is Inside Out 2 could be really good, and it might not do really good at the box office. And that's because Disney has disrupted their consumer pattern where families trust them. It is going to take years of repairing that to get back to families going to see Disney movies again, if theaters even survive. And that is why, folks, the price was far, far, far too high for Disney to pay to get rid of Bob Chapek and reinstate Bob Iger. By putting Disney directly into the partisanship, into the political arena, that price was intensely too high. It's cost them something like $1 trillion over 100 years in Florida. It's cost them their place as the king of animation. Oh, I'm sorry, queen of animation. And it means now that they'll be chasing Minions this summer and probably for the foreseeable future. Maybe Shrek very soon. Inside Out 2 may be good, but just like Andor was a good Star Wars series that nobody watched, Disney has to turn this entire thing around, and it is going to take years of repair. We'll watch and see if they can do it. We'll watch and see, is the woke gone out of this? Will it matter? Will they still go broke in a post-woke Disney world? We'll tell you in the review later today, folks, at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't miss it, and we'll tell you how all of this is connected with Acolyte and Tiana's Bayou Adventure, and whether or not Disney is going to be all right. Folks, it's time to say goodbye for now, but before we do, like, share, subscribe, click it, stick it to the algorithms, it's the notification bell. Drop a comment down below, let us know your thoughts. And folks, don't forget, at Vacation Radio, it's our first creative endeavor. It's us trying to do what Disney once did. It's the beginning. It's the first step, and we need your help. Go to @Vacation Radio here on YouTube and subscribe, and join us tonight for the live stream. I will be there for the first 2 hours of the live stream of the radio station being live in the chat, answering questions and commenting on the songs. Every single song is original. We worked on every single song, and I have done the lyrics to every single song except 2, in which I received some help because they involve languages I don't speak and I needed some assistance. But folks, we'll be there. We hope you'll be there too. It's time to get started making great content again. Wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and as always, keep having fun.
Wilton, what are you doing?
Well, word on the street is the culture war has officially made it to the doorstep of that park place. And I realize Jonas has no one there who loves him. So I thought I should go and protect them.
Yeah, okay. You know that's not, how you do this, right?
Do what? Fight? Don't worry, Floral. I will not be intimidated by a criminal threat.
Threat? Wilton, don't be ridiculous.
What does it matter to me? I have only one life to lose.
I mean, I totally expected you to die walking into traffic, but,
They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
Okay, just stop. This is just nonsense. You already have one of the easiest and most effective tools and weapons at your fingertips.
My axe?
No. The truth. Stay smart and ready to tell and share the truth by keeping up to date with WDW Pro, That Park Place, as well as Valiant Renegade.
And Jonas? I mean, he does things with Vash, and that's not very reassuring. That's like putting 2 helpless chipmunks into a piranha pond.
That's neither true nor accurate. Unlike the team from That Park Place.
Sue me.
Ugh.